Lesson 3.8 is parallel and perpendicular lines in the coordinate plane. You know that parallel lines are lines that never intersect. Well, if we're talking about parallel lines in the coordinate plane, then we know that the lines will have the same slope or the same slant. And if we have the equation of the line, an equation of a line would look like y equals maybe 3x plus 2. And in this, we know that 3 would be the slope. Well, if a line parallel to it would look like this. It would still have 3x, but its y-intercept would be different. Maybe it crosses the y-axis at 10, but its slope is still 3. And that would be two lines in the coordinate plane that are parallel to each other. Lines that are perpendicular are lines that intersect at a right angle. And if the lines are perpendicular in the coordinate plane, then the product of their slopes is -1. Means when you multiply the slopes together, it will give you -1. Another way to think about that is the slopes will be opposite reciprocals of each other. Opposite means one's positive, one's negative. Reciprocal means it's a flipped fraction. So let's see some examples. If you have y equals -1/4 x plus 7, the slope of that line would be -1/4. The line perpendicular to it will have a positive slope. It has to be opposite of that, which would be positive, and it's going to be that fraction flipped. If we take 1/4 and flip it, do the reciprocal, we get 4/1, or just 4. So the opposite reciprocal of -4 would be +4. And again, it doesn't matter what the y-intercept is. All we're concerned about here to decide whether it's perpendicular is the slope. Now, we said the formal definition says the product of the slopes is -1. If I take -1/4 and +4 and multiply them together, we make 4/1 and multiply straight across. -1 times 4 would be -4. 4 times 1 is 4. -4/4 would reduce to -1. So notice that when we multiply these together, those two slopes, you get -1. That means that these two lines, y equals -1/4 x plus 7 and y equals 4x minus 10, would be perpendicular. If we're talking about horizontal or vertical lines, any two horizontal lines are going to be parallel. They're never going to cross. What do the equations of horizontal lines look like? Remember, they look like y equals 2, y equals -3. Those would be equations of horizontal lines. They don't have a y and an x in them, just a y. And those lines, no matter where they are on the coordinate plane, they're always going to be parallel. Vertical lines are always going to be parallel to each other. What do the equation of vertical lines look like? It might be x equals 10 and x equals -7. Both of those are vertical lines. We know they're going to be parallel to each other. If we have one horizontal line, like y equals 2, and a vertical line, x equals -7, we know those will always be perpendicular to each other, because we've got one that is going vertical and one that's going horizontal, so they will always form a right angle. All right, let's determine if some lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. It says rewrite each equation in slope-intercept form if necessary, then determine if the graphs of the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, so I've got two lines here. Y equals -2x plus 7, -x plus 2y equals -4. This first one is already in slope-intercept form, so I know that the slope of it is -2. Down here in the second one, I need to rearrange it to get it into y equals mx plus b form. So the first thing I'm going to do is move the term with x to the other side of the equal sign. These cancel, so I now have 2y equals, I could put -4 plus x, but I want the x first, so I'm going to put x minus 4. I still need to get y by itself, so I'm going to divide every single term by 2. Now, x has an understood coefficient of 1 on it. So if I have 1 divided by 2, it's not going to divide evenly, so I'm going to leave it as the fraction 1/2. 1/2 x, -4 divides by 2 and gives me -2. So this is the equation of my other line in slope-intercept form. The slope of it is 1/2. All right, so do those two lines have the same slope? No, they do not. So they are not parallel. Are they perpendicular? Well, to be perpendicular, their slopes need to be opposite reciprocals, or you can check to see if they multiply to give you -1. If you do the reciprocal check, if we put -2 over 1, I've got -2 and a positive 1/2. They are opposites of each other. They are flipped. -2 over 1, 1 over 2. So they are opposite reciprocals. Therefore, these lines are perpendicular. I'm just going to use the perpendicular symbol here and circle it. That's my answer. The other way would just be to multiply. If you do -2 times 1/2, again, we're going to put this over 1. If we multiply those together, I get -2 over 2, -1. Okay? Since the product of the slopes is -1, then the lines are perpendicular. All right, let's do the next one. I need to get them in y equals mx plus b form. So if I start with the top equation, I'm going to add 3x to both sides. I'm going to come out here and do this problem because I'm going to run out of room. So I no longer have x on this side, but I still have 4y equals 3x plus 8. Again, I could put 8 plus 3x, but I want the x first. Divide every term by 4. I get y equals, now 3 won't divide by 4 evenly. It doesn't reduce, so I'm going to leave it as the fraction 3/4 x plus 8 divided by 4 is 2. So this is the slope of that first line. Now I'm going to do the second one, rearrange it. Subtract 3x from both sides. Those cancel. I get 4y equals -3x minus 12. Divide every term by 4. So I get y equals -3/4 x. -12 divided by 4 is -3. So the slope of this line is -3/4. Okay, are those two slopes the same? No, one's positive and one's negative. So I know they are not parallel lines. I do have one positive, one negative, so maybe they're perpendicular. But notice, they're not flipped. They're not reciprocals of each other. If it was perpendicular, one of them would have to be a 4 over 3 instead of a 3 over 4. So if it's not parallel and they're not perpendicular, then the answer to this one is they are neither. Another way you could check that is by doing the multiply and see if you get -1. If you multiply -3/4 times 3/4, you're going to get -9 over 16. That is not -1. So again, it's neither. The two lines intersect, they just don't intersect at right angles. Next problem. In these graphs, determine if lines L1 and L2 are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. All right, so now this time we have them on a graph, on a coordinate plane. And so we're going to use the slope formula. You can either do it by counting and doing rise over run, or you can use the actual slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, that's the slope formula. So I'll do this one by slope formula. The other one I will do by using rise over run. So if I talk about line 1 here, I want to find the slope of line 1. This could be my x2, y2. This can be my x1, y1. So I'm going to do y2, which is negative 2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. 0 minus negative 6 is the same as 0 plus 6. So I get 6. That reduces to negative 1/2. Now, the slope of line 2. Line 2, if I do, this could be my x1, y1. This could be my x2, y2. So y2 would be 3 minus y1 over x2 is 0 minus x1 is 4. 3 minus 1 is 2. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Negative 2 over 4 reduces to negative 1/2. So notice the slopes are the same. Same slopes. What kind of lines are they? They are parallel lines. Okay. This one over here, I'm going to find it by using rise over run. Let's do rise over run for this one instead of the formula. So if I look at line 1, here's line 1. I'm going to use a different color here so it shows up a little bit better. If I do line 1 and to find the slope, I'm going to go from this point to, I can actually use this point right here. If I go there, that would be, my rise would be up 2. So that's positive. So this is for line 1. I would have a positive 2 in the top, and then left 2 places would be negative 2 in the bottom. 2 over negative 2 reduces to negative 1. Now let's do line 2. I'll do that in a different color. For line 2, I have to go from this point to this point. So my rise for line 2, rise, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a positive 4. And my run is a positive direction of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. So it is positive 4/5. All right. Do they have the same slope? No. We can tell they intersect, so they're not perpendicular. Or I'm sorry, not parallel, obviously. But they don't have opposite reciprocal slopes. Or if we multiply them together, negative 1 times 4/5, that's going to equal negative 4/5. That's not negative 1. So they're not perpendicular. The answer here would be neither. They intersect, but they don't form a right angle. It's pretty close, but it's not exactly 90 degrees. All right, I'm going to pause this video and then we'll have part 2 here in a minute.